Hello there. Welcome to our first question and answer session on A level. So we're going to be looking at Unit 1, Unit 1 today. The first topic. Basically, this is a video you want to make reference to from time to time because I'll be teaching you how to answer A-level business questions. My focus today is on how to answer Section 1 and the first part of Section 2, which deals with marks that are 6 cap. Okay, so basically the mark assigned to the question will determine how to deal with the question. Okay, so the first thing you want to look at is, okay, is this a 1 mark question? Is it a 4 mark question? Is it 6? Is it 12? Or whatever. But anyway, like I said, we're looking at Section 1, and Section 1 only deals with 4 mark questions. Up in A level, A level, Unit 1, Section 1. Okay? Or Section A. So Section 1, the 4 marks question. Usually you have 6 questions under Section 1. And each question carries 4 marks. Then Section 2, you have a couple of questions, right? You have under the 6 marks question, you have 3 questions. Under the 4 mark question, you have 1 question. Under the 8 marks question, you have 1 question. Under the 12 marks question, you have 1 question. And under 14, you have just 1 question. Okay, so just once you have all this in mind, it's just good to understand the way the questions are structured so that you know how to prepare for the exams. So like I said, Section 1, 4 marks, and Section 2, 6 marks. Those are the ones we're going to be looking at today. All right, so Section 1 questions, 4 marks. Basically, there's a method I usually teach my students to follow. Okay, so I use the acronym BLT. I'm sure BLT means something else to you, but specifically for A levels business, we want to think of BLT as because, which is the B, L leading to, and T therefore. Basically, this is like analyzing a question or you're explaining further. Okay, I know you're probably thinking abstractly at this point in time, but we're gonna bring it to context soon. Right, so select your option. So basically, the 4 marks, the first mark will basically ask you a question where you have to give an answer. You choose, is it A or B or C or D? So that will give you 1 mark once you get it right. Then the next question will be to explain further, and this is where you now apply the BLT because you're explaining why you selected the option that is the option in 1. And usually the option in 1, you probably want to define it. For instance, if your answer is demand, so maybe you want to explain further what demand it is. Okay, so that is what the first mark will give you. Then secondly, you now think of leading to. Basically, you are making reference to the case study. Remember, it's like you're applying it. Whatever the question talks about is usually a case study. You want to make reference to it, okay, and talk about how the definition, that is what you have defined in point 2 there, how it affects the subject matter. Okay, how does it affect what you're talking about? Then number 4 is the GF4, okay? The result or the effect of the subject matter. In 3, what does it lead to? Like I said, it seems like I'm talking in abstract term, but once we get a question to deal with it, you understand where I'm coming from. All right. So Section 2, questions on the first question is 6 marks. All right. So in this case, you apply the knowledge application and analysis system to answer the questions. So my students will usually just call it KAA. Okay. So just bear that in mind. Section 1, you are using BLT to answer it, and Section 2, the Section 2 that has 6 marks, you are using the KAA or CAR to answer it. So what exactly is KAA? is basically knowledge. Okay, K represent knowledge. And what are you doing here? You are defining your answer, your choice. Okay, you are defining the key word. So basically, you're going to be given like a case study. You're given a case study. And the question that you are asked in that case study, will you figure out what's the keyword? What exactly are they looking for? All right. If, for instance, they are looking for entrepreneurship, if it's the characteristic of an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur itself, then you want to define what an entrepreneur is. Okay, so that is what the knowledge is talking about. Then, of course, the application. The application, this time you're applying knowledge. You're applying what you have defined. What is the knowledge we just talked about? You are applying it to the context. So you look at the case study. Where exactly is this definition pointing to in the case study? Okay, where did they talk about entrepreneur in the case study? So you extract it. All right, you extract it out. Not to worry, you're going to see an example soon. Then, of course, A, analysis. In analysis, guess what? Analysis is like you are doing the BLT, the because, the leading to, and the therefore. All right. So you just take a step back to the previous slide and see what BLT is talking about. So B, for instance, the B will just we'll be making reference back to the knowledge. Okay, now if it's, for instance, you are talking about an entrepreneurial characteristics, you will know exactly which part of the characteristics the case study is talking about. So maybe in that case, you want to bring out that characteristic. Say, for instance, is the characteristic of being indecisive, you know. So you will not say, oh yes, the fact that this person in the case study is indecisive, this will lead to him not making decision, for instance, because you're being indecisive. And therefore, if you're not making a decision on time, what happens? This could affect the business itself. This could affect maybe sales, because, for instance, they did not make decision on time to promote the product. Therefore, it will affect sales. You see that? So it's like, you're explaining further. Okay, but using the BL to just guide your train of thoughts. All right, so let's look at a typical past paper question. Okay, so like I said, this is a question that has 4 marks. You can see it here, 1 mark here, and that's the other 3 marks. So 1 mark gives you, the 1 mark is for you getting the right answer. Let's see. Theo Green is, oh, sorry about that. Let me go back. Theo Green is the founder of Nails Inc. International, okay? A successful global brand. She has won many awards, including Entrepreneur of the Year in 2010. Which one of the following is lists? Remember, it's saying lists, all right? Is least likely to be characteristic of a successful entrepreneur. Least likely, so that means it is not a characteristic of a successful entrepreneur. We know that self-confidence, that is one good characteristic of an entrepreneur. We know that from our previous video. Risk taker, yes. Again, one key thing is that an entrepreneur has to be able to take risk. Resilience, yes, of course. An entrepreneur has to be resilient. They need to be able to face the test of time. They need to be able to come up and stand up from their downfall and come back again, re-energize and take it again instead of just giving up when there's problem. So that's being resilient. Then indecisive. Oh my God, you cannot be indecisive when you're an entrepreneur. You need to be able to make good decisions. So that is the answer. D is the answer. So what you need to do, you just write D where you have answer somewhere here. Okay, then of course, explain why this answer is correct. So explain why indecisive is correct. All right, why is indecisive correct? Okay, let's take a look at the answer. So I have the marking scheme up there. You can see number 1, which is indecisive, that's the correct one, gives you 1 mark there. Then how do you explain why this answer is correct? So basically, you want to define what an entrepreneur is. Defines an entrepreneur. That's the key thing there now. But you want to relate it. There's so many characteristics. There's the definition of entrepreneur, the characteristic of an entrepreneur. You want to relate it you want to relate it to that fact that the entrepreneur should be able to make decision, because that is where the subject matter is. So you want to look at the keyword here. The keyword, you know exactly the question is talking about an entrepreneur. So that's why you need to define it. Defines an entrepreneur. Now, what's an entrepreneur? Someone who combines the factor of production in order to create um in order to create why is this, yeah, I beg your pardon. Let's go back again. Oh, my stuff is just moving here. Okay, so basically it defines an entrepreneur as someone who combines the factor of production in order to create a business, in order to create a business, willingness to take risk involved in running a business. So basically that is give you 1 mark. So the second mark, now you're not making reference to indecisiveness. Okay, so many successful entrepreneurs have to be able to make many risk decision for the survival of their business. Okay, if you do not make decision, then for goodness sake, your business is not going to hold on, it's not going to continue, because you're not deciding on things to do. All right, so then guess what? If you do not make decision, what happens if decisions are not made? That's the leading to the therefore, I beg your pardon. And if decisions are not made quickly, okay, vital opportunities will be lost. Okay, you can see that if decisions are not made quickly, vital opportunities will be lost, thereby risk and success of the business, or risking the success of the business. Okay, so this is how you get your 3 marks. Okay, so remember the BLT, because, leading to, and therefore. That is where this you could use this. You just explain further, but you're basically defending why you chose the indecisiveness. That is answer D. Then alternatively, if for instance you do not know how to explain further why you chose indecisiveness, okay, you could actually explain the distractors. That is the alternative, the ones that are wrong. For instance, let me go back again 1 slide. You need to explain why self-confidence is not correct. Okay, so why self-confidence is not the least likely. Self-confidence. You also want to explain why risk taker is not correct, and you want to explain why resilient is not correct. So the bottom line here is that it's either you choose this method here by explaining further, or you explain the 3 alternatives that are not correct. For instance, A is wrong because an entrepreneur has to be self-confident and believes in their ideas and decision making, particularly when faced with difficult choices. All right. Then B is wrong because entrepreneurs do not risk, which are balanced against reward. I beg your pardon. B is wrong because entrepreneurs do take risks. They do take risks, okay, which are balanced against reward. Then C is wrong because resilience means not giving up, okay, which is crucial for a successful entrepreneur, as business often struggle or fail, especially in the first 1 year. Okay, so you are basically explaining the 3 alternatives, the 3 wrong questions. Okay, either way, it's either you explain further what indecisive is, or you explain why the other 3 is wrong. So that will give you your remaining 3 marks. So 1 mark here, 3 marks here, or 3 marks here. All right, I hope that's clear enough. So let's take a look at another similar question about entrepreneur. So let me read it. It says James Dyson made 5,126 prototypes when designing his first bagless vacuum cleaner. All of them turned out to be failures. Okay, you see, it turned out to be failures. What would you be thinking about then? Failure. That is something that entrepreneurs face from time to time. Failure. So when you fail, what do you do? You don't give up. You stand up again. You dust your shoulders and take the bull by the horn. That is it. So one thing that will come to your mind when you see something that a case study that is talking about failure, what should come to your mind? Resilience. Something that, I failed, but I have to stand up again. So let's see if there's any resilience in this question. Yeah, that's it there. Resilience is there. But let's see, are they asking if it's the wrong one or the right one? So the question says the fact the fact best describes James Dyson's, okay, resilience. Obviously, the answer will be resilience. Ethical stance, definitely not. This does not have anything to do with ethical. Risk taking, risk taking. Okay, yes, entrepreneurs should, yeah, but it should be a risk taker. But in this regards, I don't think it has anything to do with the risk. He's already in the business. But once we talk about failure, you want to think about resilience. Then initiative as well. Yes, initiative, you're a self-starter and all that, but that doesn't have anything to do with this. The resilience, I think resilience is the answer. Let's take a look at the marking scheme. You can see that D is the answer. Okay, so D, resilience, so that will give you 1 mark. So now let's explain further. So resilience means not giving up easily, determination to succeed. Okay, so you have explained what resilience is there. Okay, so that gives you 1 mark. The fact that you chose it, okay, but you did not explain it further. So that first mark, you're explaining, you're defining it. Okay, so that will come under the knowledge area there. Then it is a key characteristic of successful entrepreneur. It is a key characteristic of a successful entrepreneur. All right. Then given the high number of prototypes, you can see now making reference to the case study there, which given the high number of prototypes, 5,126, is evident of James Dyson's. Okay, so you could see that they're explaining that further. Alternatively, now you're going to see you could just choose to answer why it's why A is not correct, or why B is not correct, or why C is not correct. So in this regard, it says A is not correct because ethical stance is a motive rather than characteristic. Listen, some students will go, ethical stance is not correct because it doesn't have anything to do with it. No, that's not it. No, you need to explain what ethical stance is and now relate it to what is being discussed. That's what will give you your mark. Don't just say it doesn't have anything to do with this. Sorry, no way. Okay, so A is not correct because ethical stance is a motive rather than a characteristics. Okay, then B is not correct because there is no suggestion that James either sacrificed any finance or employment. Okay, then C is not correct because initiative relates to doing something without being prompted to do so. So basically, you are explaining what those other things are, and you kind of find a way to relate it to the subject matter. Okay, so that's how to answer 4 marks questions. So finally, let's take a look at how to answer 6 marks question. This will involve a case study. Yeah, that's it then. Okay, so this is section 2. So like I said, you have 6, is that 6 again, or 4 marks? 6, this is 6 marks, you have 4 of it in section 2. Okay, so let me quickly, usually when you're in section 2, I suggest you look at the question first before you read the case study. Okay, so this will give you an idea of where to start marking because you're conscious of time. So let's take a look at the question. The question says, using the case study, that's the question here. Using the case study, explain 2 entrepreneurial characteristics displayed by Ben Kaufman. Okay, so that gives you an idea because the case study is large. You're going to be making reference to it but under different topics. So what this question is looking for, obviously, is a characteristic of an entrepreneur. Okay, so now you want to be reading and be marking out where did they talk about the characteristic. They're not going to just say this is the characteristics, but you will know from the discussion that they are referring to his ability, his innate strength, or it's something that has to do with its characteristic of being who he is as a person. Okay, so let's quickly take a look at the evidence. Let me read through it fast. So, ever had a great idea but not known where to start to bring it to reality? Ben Kaufman experienced this as a teenager in 2005 when he invented Morphe and iPhone accessories. To bring Morphe's to the market, Ben's parents remortgaged their home. Remember, remortgage, that's a risk there. Do you see that? It's a risk. When you remortgage your home because of a business, it's a risk because you really don't know whether that business will work. Okay, so you can quickly identify that Kaufman is a risk taker. Okay, he's a risk taker. So you can just quickly mark that. You are not sure if that's the answer yet, but just mark that. You can see that that's one of the characteristics of an entrepreneur, which is a risk taker. All right. So remortgaged their home, but he soon discovered there were more problems or to overcome, including manufacturing, supply chain, and retail. Okay, remortgage, that's the risk. More problem to overcome. I wonder what you would think about it. There's so many characteristics you can actually extract from this. I will talk about risk there, which is the first one. Then the second one, I probably want to talk about um, resilience. Let's quickly look at the next one. So I realized that the product on retail shelves aren't the best idea. Okay, in the world, there are just the ideas of people who have access to those shelves. So you see, it's talking about best idea. Creativity should come to your mind as well. I wanted to start a company that had a mission statement of making invention more accessible. In 2009, Ben founded Corky. Guess what? You see, he's talking about he's thinking about creativity. So that's one characteristic you could talk about. But let's see which, because they only say two, they didn't say two, because there's so many you can pick from here. But let's see what the marking scheme selected. So you bear in mind the fact that they just gave two of that does not necessarily mean you cannot find more, but this is just the two the examiner decided to choose here. Let's see what they choose. So they said knowledge. Remember I said when you're talking about 6 marks questions, you have to use the KAA, which is the knowledge. It gives you the 2 marks. Application will give you another 2 marks, and analysis will give you the last 2 marks. Okay, 6 marks questions. So let's read the question again. Using the case study, explain 2 entrepreneurial characteristics displayed by Ben Kaufman. Knowledge. So knowledge area, what are you talking about? They say took entrepreneur. Okay, so basically you want to explain what an entrepreneur is. Okay, so mark for defining or showing understanding of entrepreneurial characteristics. That will give you 2 marks. For instance, risk taking 1, and creativity. Okay, that's the second one. All right. So you want to explain it. And an entrepreneur is somebody that is a risk taker, and they also have the ability to be creative or whatever. You want to explain that further. So that will give you 2 marks there. All right. So application, which is the second one here. How do you now apply it to the context here? So it says application up to 2 marks for contextual answers taken from evidence A. Remember, this is evidence A. That's it there. So, and that's where we're actually talking about its characteristics of an entrepreneur. So 2 marks for this. So it says as a teenager, he persuaded his parents to remortgage. That's showing the risk. Okay, risk taking that you mentioned here. You're explaining it further here. Do you see that? Because you mentioned it here, so you want to explain it. What you're explaining there, how is it applicable here? All right, so you can see that as a teenager, he persuaded his parents to remortgage his home. That will give you 1 point, and that's addressing the risk taking. He has combined modern technology with a platform of creating new products. Again, he talked about creating new products somewhere there, So again, you're explaining the second choice there, creativity. I hope that makes sense. So you're applying the knowledge. You've selected, you're defining it, but you're making reference to the subject matter in here. Then analysis, okay? So analysis again will give you your 2 marks. 2 marks are available for giving reasons, cause, consequences. Okay, any one of these. Explaining further, it could be the reason for whatever they've done here, or the consequences, okay, or whatever. Again, I use BLT as a guide. But if you thinking along this line, it's okay. Consequences as a result, as a result of this, what happens to the business and at large. Okay, so it says if the business had failed, okay, remember we're still making reference to the risks. These 2 things that we talked about. If the business has failed, that's the consequences. Okay, if the business has failed, he and his family would have been homeless. Okay, all right. So that is obviously they're choosing to focus on the consequences here. So if, for instance, this fact that he's a risk taker. What's the consequences of being a risk taker? The disadvantage, more or less. This could have made them homeless. He has created a unique, we're making reference to the second one, creativity again here. He has made a unique way of bringing new products to the market and a successful business. All right. So basically, this is a positive one now. Okay, being creative obviously will make him produce new product and will lead to the success. So you can see they talked about the advantage of this, the second one, and the disadvantage of the first one. All right. So it depends. So this is like a free will. It depends on where you want to and tackle the question. But so long as you know you're making sense, okay? Just a summary again about the KAA. Define, okay? K represents understand. Just also they want to understand, they want to see how you understand the basic idea of what they're talking about. That's the knowledge. You're defining the two aspect there. You're mentioning it there. Then the application, how does it apply to the case study itself, and you're now analyzing for that. But remember, you are always making reference to whatever you have defined here. You see everything that they're talking about, the application and the analysis is always making reference to risk taking and creativity. My dear, if you do this correctly, I tell you, you will get your full marks. All right, thank you very much for listening to the video. I'll see you soon.